my inciting incident was a 2-ton truck bomb.
So let's start with tell me who you are and what is it that you do?
My name is Dominic Morgan. I'm a screenwriter and a screenwriting coach. My mother wouldn't allow us to watch cartoons. She's a very quite overbearing, wonderful Catholic woman, and we weren't allowed to watch cartoons, but she would let us watch David Lean movies. And I grew up on The Bridge on the River Kwai, Dr. Zhivago, Great Expectations, and all those types of movies. And I think that locked in my eye. And the other thing is I went to this very twee, sort of very musical school, which was the feeder college to Winchester College. And there was a music teacher there. I was pretty much tone deaf, but he loved films. And every term he put on North by Northwest.
$13.
Or The Third Man. And I think that definitely created a need in me for these big screen stories.
Wow, man, having David Lean beaten into it at a young age is a gift, but I must say one thing, you didn't mention Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia, it's up there in my top 20, and it still stands up today as this behemoth, and just reading how they put that together, and the set design in the desert, that they were painting lines in the desert to lead the eye when Omar Sharif's coming in on the camel. It's all designed. And we grew up with all these war movies. So there was a glut of war movies in the 60s where suddenly war became fun, adventure stories. And there was this great sort of celebration of what the Brits or the Americans did in the Second World War. So movies like Where Eagles Dare, Guns of Navarone, Von Ryan's Express. So I grew up on war, violence. And in fact, my mother said to me, I went to one of her very smart friends in Wimbledon, aged 2, stood on the lawn and said, "I love violence." And I think that's probably stayed with me in terms of loving action movies. I read drama at university. I wanted to be an actor, and it was a very practical course where acting was maybe 10% of it. But I got exposed to writing, and then for some reason, I decided I didn't want to go into theatre. I wanted to write cinema, and I walked into the university library, age 21, and I said, "Do you have any books on screenwriting?" And I got this book from the 1950s. There were no books, and it just said, yeah, interior, exterior, that's screenplay formatting. I thought, right, I've got this.
When you say right, I got this, so like what, did you start writing screenplays at the age of 21?
I wrote a terrible screenplay that didn't get finished, but after university, I worked in telephone sales at the Financial Times newspaper. I was a salesman, skills which actually came in use later on when I was pitching and selling movie ideas. But I started to really kick the tires of a couple of courses. I didn't commit. I was still drinking a lot. You know, I hated my job and all I wanted to do was go out and get wasted. So it's quite hard to write in the weekends if you're hungover. And then my inciting incident was a 2-ton truck bomb, which exploded outside my house in the city of London. The IRA came in on a Saturday morning. They parked a truck bomb about 150 meters away from me, and it blew every window out for half a mile, killed a journalist. And I was in bed with a massive hangover, and it, blew in the windows. And after that, I just thought, right, I better commit to what I want to do because I might not be here forever. The IRA literally put a bomb under me and made me commit to my screenwriting career in a way that I hadn't previously. So after that, nights, weekends, holidays, all the time I had was devoted to this goal, which was to sell a script and get it made in Hollywood. I did the first one at university that I didn't finish. The second one I sold for 500 quid, which was just me. And then the first script that I wrote with Matt Harvey, we sold. And you saw the contract. And, it's a couple of, 10, 20 grand up front. But if the movie got made, you're looking at $500,000. And then they hired us for another 2. So there we are thinking, okay, well, if the movie doesn't get made, we can get through a year. But we presumed that one of these 3 movies would get made, and they didn't. And I've been involved in 35 projects, and only 6 of them have got made. And not the ones that I wish perhaps got made, but optioning something and actually getting it made, there's oceans apart. It's not easy to option things these days either. My first screenplay with my writing partner, we sold. And the producer was interested in us and gave us a children's book, which I wasn't that keen on. And I actually said, let's pass. And he was so enraged by that, we pitched him another idea. He'll say, I'll do both. You write this one for me, and I'll pick up your story, which was much more our zone, which was about the death squads operating in Brazil who kill street children. So I'd read this story that there were off-duty cops who, for $50, would kill children because they were a menace, because they'd rob the tourists and bring the trade down. So there were these groups of shopkeepers who paid to kill the kids, and the off-duty cops took the money. And I thought, this sounds like a great idea. And it was incredible. Like, he said, well, I think you should go over to Brazil to research it. And we went over there. We had a bodyguard, and we went into all the all the favelas, hanging out with all these drug dealers, which I'd never seen any of this stuff, and it was like crack cocaine. Going to murder scenes, seeing bodies, hearing guns, all that sort of stuff. And that lit a fire in me. And then we had to write the children's movie. And then neither one got made. But I learnt one of the greatest things that you can get, and you've got to really bank, is on most of the projects you work on won't get made. But there is a wealth of experience and people and stories that you can get out of that. And sometimes that's the greatest bonus, rather than actually them getting made. So hanging out with drug dealers in Rio, that's certainly something that's up there in my top 10. I was 27 then, so I did 5 years selling ad space in the Financial Times. And then we wrote our first script in 95, we got an agent in 96, and a 3-picture deal at the end of 96. But what happened afterwards was not how I expected. It was 17 years of struggle. In those days, obviously no internet, no scripts, but there was a shop in Hollywood that would sell the actual scripts. And so they're very expensive. $30 a go, I would buy boxes of them. And I bought action movies, I bought Die Hard, I bought Speed, I bought The Fugitive, and learned by osmosis. And then I took a couple of classes and then figured out, okay, what does our Die Hard look like, set in a mind? And we delivered that. And it didn't get made. At one point, Samuel L. Jackson was attached, Catherine Bigelow was going to direct, and this is the story of what it is to be a screenwriter. It's like you've got all these stocks and shares. It's your portfolio of projects, and some go up and some go down. And depending who comes on board, then that one goes up and gets closer, and occasionally they get made. My whole big goal is I just wanted to not have to do a 9-to-5 job, and to get paid anything to do what I loved, which was writing movies, seemed impossible. And when it happened, I just was so grateful. And I was terrified for my whole 17 years that they'd take it away and I'd have to go back into an office and sell advertising space. And that drove me, that and perhaps that bomb. We were with a smaller traditional agent. We did lots of little gigs. We moved up to a bigger agent, got us into Hollywood in 2005. We wrote for studios. There was a lot of near misses. There were some scores. There was a couple of massive years where we were working for Working Title, writing movies for them. I mean, I wrote 45 scripts, or co-wrote many of those. And of those 45 scripts, there are many of those which were passion projects, which didn't have a hope in hell. But I was so focused on what I wanted to do that perhaps, period story about priest hunters in the 16th century. I'm passionate about this. Who's going to pay for it? If you're a novelist and you write a book and 5 people read it, that book has delivered on its purpose as a medium. Because you've written it, it's been read. Screenplay is a bit of a bastard format because unless it gets made, it's never fully realized. And the only way it's going to get realized is if you can find the money, the resources to get it made. So the bigger the story, the more fans you need, the more risk. And so I think coming back to what I know now, in the sort of 2010s, we had a very good manager in Hollywood, an absolute terminator called Joel Ross. And yeah, I mean, he was straight out of a movie, but he was relentless on our behalf. And I love movie posters, and I once wrote a kind of double indemnity noir about these two movie poster collectors who were warring. It was like warring over this vintage paper. And I'll never forget what he said to me. He goes, "Dominic, now is not the time to be playing with our cocks. Write in the genres that we can get made. Write me a contained thriller. You're known as thriller writers." And we wrote this script called The Bridge, which was a $20 million Die Hard on the Bridge, and it's been under option for pretty much the last 15 years. Every single year, somebody comes out of the woodwork and said, "Is that available?" And the company who've got it at the moment have said, "Yeah, we're going to make it." I don't believe them, because my whole strategy when you sell a script, when you write a script, you have to believe it's going to get made. Otherwise, you'll go mad. But the moment it goes out into the world, you almost have to divest yourself of that hope that it's going to get made. You don't necessarily have to be pessimistic about it, but if you're forever waiting for things to happen, it can be very corrosive. Much better to line up the next one that's going to get made.
Did you ever feel that you were just writing for the sake of writing, or was there a difference between if you were indeed writing what you would consider to be a passion screenplay versus something that you thought was just going to be a commissioned event?
I mean, I love contained thrillers.
No.
Buried.
Let me out of here, and I promise you I will get you the money.
You show blood.
What?
You show blood, they take money.
No.
Phone booth.
You shoot a gun here and they'll be pandemonium. All right, do you hear me? There'll be cops swarming all over this block.
You think so? Let's see. 1, 2. That won't help you. 3.
Those types of movie. It's like the Olympics as a screenwriter or a filmmaker. You've got a very limited resources, limited locations, and you've got to create a thriller. You know, Hitchcock's Rope.
He's got it. He knows. He knows. He knows.
All right.
He knows.
Easy. I'll take care
No,
of it.
you won't. I'd just as soon kill you as kill him.
So contained thrillers, for me, it's not selling out to write a contained thriller, because I love contained thrillers, and I wrote about 3 of them. I wrote one on a drug sub, a fiberglass drug sub. That got optioned a couple of times. I wrote one on a bridge. I've written another one in a horse ranch that's besieged by this cult. So I think for me, writing these contained thrillers wasn't me moving away from what I did best, but there have been occasions where if you chase the market and that's not your thing, then it can be a mistake.
Explain that. What does that mean exactly?
Well, I think I transitioned to TV around about 2015. The studio stopped making films, the writing assignments dried up, so there was a lot of financial pressure. They were no longer interested in making stories with a beginning, a middle, and end. They used to call them programmers. So anything from 30 to 50 million, where they'd make a couple of blockbusters and a bunch of these programmers, and they didn't really need to make that much money to justify themselves. And some of our favorite movies from the 90s would have been called programmers, you know, courtroom dramas, which nobody's going to make there because it doesn't have any aliens in it, or Thor's hammer or whatever. So what happened was the assignment market, this is something that's very important that writers understand, that most of the money for professional screenwriters does not come from selling scripts or optioning scripts. It's being hired by producers to help them rewrite their movies or adapt their books. That's where the money is. But if you can't get assigned, it becomes very difficult to earn a living as a screenwriter. But then there are also years where you do really well, and then you think, right, okay, next year's going to be like that. I think I need an Audi. And the next year you earn nothing. So one of the biggest takeaways is, I would say to any filmmakers, is don't buy shit, because you might have to sell it. Keep your break even low, and don't expect if you have a good year to earn the same the next year. But equally, just because you have a bad year doesn't mean the next year isn't going to be a good one.